Beth worked for the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection's youth program since 2018, following a career in the newspaper industry. She graduated from Marshall University with a degree in journalism. Originally from Wisconsin, Beth grew up in Pocahontas County and has always enjoyed hiking and being outdoors. She loves being able to share environmental activities with schools, clubs, and youth groups in her district. Beth lives in Elkins with her husband, Gary, and their two children, Ruby and Cole. And they have a mini farm. Maybe you should have done your presentation on your farm with sheep, rabbits, ducks, chickens, cats, and dogs. So I will turn it over to Beth.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, one of my outside dogs was just barking and growling in the background. So he was barking at the cats. But thanks everyone for being here today. I'm going to talk about how you can make your own bag. So if you had pre-registered, I sent out a supply list that we'll make our own T-shirt bag later on in the presentation. If you're just joining us and didn't get that advance email with the list of supplies, it's okay. You don't have to do it together with us, or if you want to, you can find an old T-shirt, sturdy scissors, a pen, and then either a plate or a large bowl. But that'll be the second part of the presentation. So first, I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to learn a little bit about single-use bags and the benefits of reusable bags. Get to the beginning of it. So we're going to make our own reusable bags. We're going to learn about why reusable bags make a positive impact on the environment. So today we'll talk briefly about the history of plastic bags. If some of you were in the 9 a.m. session with Tom, you might have learned some of this already. We'll talk about how long they last, how you can make a difference, and then you can make your own bag. So plastics have been around a long time, but in 1953, this HDPE type of plastic was invented, high density polyethylene. It gave them the strength and the durability and the ability to be molded into just about anything. So we have plastic toothbrushes. We can have big things of plastic like picnic tables. We can have plastic pieces in our cars. So plastic is everywhere. But in the 1980s, they began having plastic bags being marketed as an alternative to paper bags, because paper bags were a problem because it cut down so many trees. So many trees were cut down to be used as paper bags. So they were invented as a way to reduce the amount of trees being cut down. So that's why the plastic bag was invented. And unfortunately, instead of being reused, they ended up being so convenient that we have lots and lots of them now. So consumers realized, hey, this is great. We can have this strong, durable bag. And they ended up in the 1980s being used in grocery stores and big box stores. And so they have taken over now. They're very convenient. So plastic bags by the numbers, 100 billion are used and disposed in the United States every year. The average time that a plastic bag is used is 12 minutes, which does not seem very long, but if you go to the store, you put your stuff in the bag, you take it home, you take it out. Hopefully you'll recycle it, but you might not. Not everyone recycles their plastic bags, unfortunately. And then lots and lots are used every minute. 2 million are actually used worldwide every minute. And that seems crazy, but there are lots of people in the world. Most plastic bags are not biodegradable. So like I said, if you watch Tom's presentation, he got into the details a little bit more, but plastic is so durable that it takes a long time to break down, and it actually doesn't totally break down completely. It just breaks into teeny tiny pieces. Depending on the conditions, some bags last an estimated 1,000 years, which also seems crazy. But if you think how many bags are being used all the time and they go to the landfill, they're not recycled. In a landfill, it's very dark and they're not getting a lot of sunlight. And we want them, if they're not going to be recycled, we want you to throw them away. But it does take a long time for them to break down, if they break down at all. And unfortunately, a lot end up as litter. They've been found at the bottom of the ocean, on top of Mount Everest. They can get caught by the wind and the rain, and they can end up, even though here in West Virginia, we're not close to the ocean, obviously, but all of our streams and rivers do lead to the ocean. So unfortunately, plastic bags can travel, and they do end up in the oceans and all over the place. Unfortunately, that affects wildlife as well. An estimated 100,000 marine mammals and up to 1 million seabirds die every year because of marine litter. So we've all seen that. We've seen plastics all over the place. But luckily, we can make a difference, right? That's why you're here. So plastics are everywhere, but you can take steps to help the environment. So we're going to go through that briefly. I know you've heard the term reduce, reuse, recycle. But when you reduce, you're using fewer items, you're trying to buy less, and you're trying to throw away less. So maybe instead of buying a whole bunch of beverage containers, it's so hard to see, you can reuse things. So you're buying less, you're maybe buying one large bottle or one reusable bottle, and so you're buying less that way. Throwing away less means composting a lot of things if possible. So that would be a whole nother class. But instead of throwing your apple cores away and your coffee grounds and all the different food scraps that you have in your house, you could reduce the amount of trash being thrown away if you look into composting. So that would be something that would be cool to do. Reusing is what we're going to do, obviously, in a little bit, but you can reuse things as much as possible. Boxes, greeting cards, bottles, cans, clothing, like what we're going to do. So in the chat, you can put different things that maybe you reuse in your own life, or things that you might want to reuse. And I can't see the chat because I'm in the full screen mode here. So maybe Tom can help me out. If anybody puts things in the chat that you reuse already, maybe your family uses a reusable shopping bag when you go to the store. Maybe you use old greeting cards to make into new cards to send at Christmas time or to send for birthdays. So if you have any ideas on things that you reuse, just let us know.
Jenna says we reuse plastic bags as trash bags. Great.
Yeah, that's a very good thing to do, to reuse it.
I reuse glass jars sometimes to hold change or pens or pencils and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And so then with recycling, that's the last step in reduce, reuse, recycle. Because recycling is important. It is collecting materials that can be processed into something new. But unfortunately, not everything can be recycled. So you can recycle certain types of plastics, like the clear plastic beverage bottle. On the bottom, it'll have a triangle with a number 1. And I don't think you can see it because I have this weird screen thing. And then plastics number 2 can be recycled in a lot of places in West Virginia. But there's other types of plastic that unfortunately can't be recycled. So if it does not have a 1 or a 2 on the bottom, it might not be able to be recycled in your community. But paper, plastic bags, cans, so that's great. Aluminum cans and steel cans, those are great to recycle. Cardboard and glass. In some places in West Virginia, you can recycle glass. So you can make it a habit. You can keep your reusable bags on hand and use them over and over again. Every time you go to the store, if you go to the library, if you're taking stuff to the pool, you can use your reusable bags. Carry your reusable water bottle when you go to school, anywhere you go. So if it's a habit, you'll always have it with you. You don't have to buy a new single-use plastic item. And find out what can be recycled in your area. And then enlist your family's help to make it a regular habit to recycle on a regular basis. And you can spread the word. So maybe you have seen people taking before and after pictures when they're picking up litter. You can share that on social media with adult permission. And we have programs, Adopt a Highway, Adopt a Spot, and Make It Shine. Those are DEP programs where kids just like you can help make a difference in your community by picking up litter. And those are great programs. And I will share some information at the end on how you can get more details on that. And then you can encourage your friends and your family to avoid single-use plastics. Start using reusable straws, reusable utensils, reusable food containers, and then those reusable water bottles. Like I said, those are great. Those are things that you might already be doing that are helping the environment. And you can encourage other folks to follow your lead. So when you reuse your bag, one reusable bag, when you use it regularly, I'm gonna hold it up. There's my T-shirt bag. We're gonna make one here in a minute. It could replace anywhere from 100 to 500 single-use bags per year. So you have to use it several times to make an impact and make it a habit. You could also host a yard sale or donate your unused clothing or shoes or toys. You can pass them along to family members or friends who are maybe smaller than you if you've outgrown your clothes, or you could donate them to local charities. That's making an impact. You're letting that, that toy or that set of clothing or shoes, you're letting those things have another life. You're letting them be reused by somebody else after you don't need them anymore. And that's a way that you're helping the environment. So here's where I just list some of the places where you can have additional resources. We have a page for our youth environmental program, and it lists a lot of different environmental education resources for kids. And you can go to our website, dep.wv.gov, and you type YEP in the search bar, and our program will pop up. And we also have videos from the 2020 virtual camp, and some of those videos have some upcycling crafts, and there's a lot of other information as well. The DEP also has the Adopt a Highway and Adopt a Spot programs, like I mentioned. And if you're involved in a club or your family or even your church, or if your family, maybe your parents or grandparents have a business that would want to adopt a highway, that is for ages 12 and up, and you could adopt at least 2 miles of a stretch of highway, and they would provide the bags and the gloves, and you can get a sign, 2 signs at the each end of your highway, and you would pick up litter at least twice a year. Now, the Adopt a Spot program is for a little bit smaller area. I believe it's a 1/4 mile, and it's 1 sign, and it's no age limit. So if you have folks who are under age 12 and would want to adopt a spot, you can take part in that program as well. And then the Recycling Coalition of West Virginia, I put this on here because they have a recycling pledge, which you could take. They also have some contests for kids, for younger kids. There's a coloring contest each year. And then there are some prizes. And then the older kids, there's a different contest. Tom, is that an essay contest for the older kids?
There is an essay contest. Yeah, there's different things they can do, but writing an essay is one option in the contest.
Yeah, so that would be great. And then also they have a fashion show each year where kids just like you create their own costumes and then high fashion different outfits out of reusing items. So it's really, really a cool program. So you can check that out. But next we're going to do our upcycling activity. So I'm going to have the instructions here. We can do it live together if you want to. And it takes, 15 to 20 minutes. So we are right on time here. Here's a picture of my 5-year-old. He is modeling one of the t-shirt bags that I made. So we use an old t-shirt. I don't want you to do this with a brand new t-shirt. The idea is to upcycle, give new life to something, and you're reusing it in a new way. So you can have an old t-shirt, maybe it has a stain, maybe it's outgrown, maybe there's a little couple holes on it, or it's just a shirt you don't wear anymore. Sturdy scissors, a pen, and then a plate or a medium-sized bowl, or even a lid. I have a plastic lid, large enough to cover your t-shirt. The top part, the t-shirt neck is what we're going to be doing. I might have to turn off my background so you can see. There it goes. So we're going to cover that up, and we're going to have optional items, permanent markers, fabric paint, or decorations such as buttons or scraps. So the first step is you're going to turn your t-shirt inside out. You're going to lay it flat with the front facing up. So I'm going to turn this old t-shirt inside out. This one definitely has some stains on it, and it'll look cool as a bag. So I'm turning it inside out, and I'm going to lay it flat. And I am going to cut off the sleeves, and I'm going to leave the seam. So I don't know if you can see it very well. I'm going to leave that seam on there on both sides so that it'll make the handles sturdier. So I'm going to just cut off close to where the seam is, but I'm going to leave the seam as part of my bag. So I'm cutting off the sleeves. It's hard to do to hold it up. And just try to do it as close to the seam as possible, but you don't have to have it perfect. It's kind of hard to cut fabric if you've never done it before. That's why I said to get some sturdy scissors. And depending on how old you are, you might need a grown-up's help. But I've done this with, I think I've done this with as little kids as little as 5, and with help, they can do it. So there's my first sleeve. Now hang on to your scraps, because you can think of different creative ways that you can reuse the scrap. It could be a hair tie, it could be decorations for dolls, or who knows what. My kids find all kinds of uses for scraps. So that's my first sleeve that I cut off. And I'm going to go over to the second side, second sleeve, and I'm going to cut it off. And if you're following along with me and I'm going too fast, just let us know. You can unmute yourself if you have a question, or you can put it in the chat and Tom can let me know. So I'm cutting the second sleeve. And these scissors, even though they're sturdy, I'm still having to hold the fabric really tight to get it to cut. So you might be having the same problems. And sometimes little tiny shortcuts will work really well for the fabric. So there's my second sleeve. So now I have both of the sleeves off, and I am going to lay the t-shirt flat with the collar facing me, the front of the collar facing me, and I'm going to trace a half circle over the neck of the shirt. So I'm going to lay either a bowl or a plate so that it fits all the way over the front part of the t-shirt. If you don't have one that's big enough, you can just trace a half circle around the neck. And so you're just going to be just like in the picture.
Can you repeat that?
So you cut off the sleeves, and then you're going to lay your shirt flat with the top part up so you can see the collar, and you are going to trace a half circle so that you're cutting the neck part of the t-shirt off. So it's a half circle, just like in the picture. I know when I hold it up, it's kind of hard to see, but if you can look at the screen and see what I did there. So I am going to trace this one, just like a half circle motion, or if you don't want to lay something down, you can just draw a line around the neck seam of your shirt. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be sort of like a half circle shape. And then you just cut that part off. So I'm cutting the neck part. It's so hard with the virtual background. Maybe I should turn that off. I'm cutting the half circle around the neck of the shirt. So how's everybody doing? Doing all right?
Pretty good.
Okay. So I've got the top part of my shirt here, and this is the scrap, and I'm going to hang on to the scraps because I might find something to do with that. And then the neck part is cut out of the shirt, and now I have the handles there. And the next step, I'm going to switch this screen. The next step will be to cut a strip across the bottom of the shirt. So I am going to lay the shirt flat and even it out. So I'm going to even out the bottom of the shirt so I can cut an even strip across the bottom. And I'm going to go right above the seam. So you don't have to keep the seam there. I'm just going to cut straight across as evenly as possible. And eventually you will get a long circular strip from the bottom. So I'm just cutting along the bottom of the shirt. And you'll have a long circular strip, and we're going to snip it so that it becomes one long tie. And that's what we're going to use to make the bottom of our bag. So I am at the bottom here. So now I have this circular strip. So that was the seam at the bottom, and now it's one long circle, and I'm going to just snip it anywhere. It doesn't matter where. And now I have one long strip. So the next step will be to take the bottom of your shirt, just where you just cut it, and gather it up as evenly as possible. So I'm going to show you that again. So here's the bottom of the shirt, and I'm just gathering it together like that. And this will become the bottom of our bag. And so if you have your long strip, you are going to use it to tie some really tight knots. So you might need a grown-up's help for this part.
Do you mind repeating that?
So I'm gathering the bottom of my shirt. I'm gathering it really tightly, and I'm using that long strip to tie a couple really tight knots. So I am going to do one knot on this side. Really tight. And I'm going to do a square knot. You can do whatever knots you know how to do. Just make sure they're really tight and secure. So I did one knot on one side, and now I'm going to flip it back around and tie another knot. So it'll have at least 2 or 3 really tight knots there. And I'm going to do one more there. Really tight, and I'm going to double it. So this has some good knots on there. And now we have a long extra tie, and I'm going to cut the excess off. I'm just going to trim the excess tie off there. So that's it. So I have a really secure bundle here at the bottom with a couple knots. And now the last step is flipping it inside out. And then you're done, unless you want to decorate it. So I'm going to go to the next screen here. So you trim the excess length off your tie strip, you flip it right side out, and there I have a bag. This bag is from the Journal in Martinsburg, where I worked a long time ago. Now you can, oh yay, we have some bags, awesome. Very cool. Now I have instructions here. If you want to decorate it, you can put a piece of cardboard in the middle of your bag to sort of protect it from bleeding through. You can use permanent markers or fabric paint or fabric markers. You could write your name on it. You could decorate it however you want to, but that's optional. I've just used the bags just like this. If you want, you could sew buttons or scraps on there too. But your new bag is washable, it's unique, and it's good for the environment. So thank you for doing that along with me. And that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I encourage you to get creative when reusing and upcycling. So you can put in the chat different things that you want to reuse. You can put in the chat maybe places that you're going to use your reusable bag. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. How do I do that here? Do I pause share or there? Stop share.
There you go.
Me and my friends, we get old bike parts because I live at a bike resort. I get old bike parts and I jewelry out of it, and I sell them. And the lady that I sell them to sells them. Hi, Mom.
That's awesome.
That's
Love
really
it's recycled.
Cool.
Yeah. It's fun and just yeah.
That is very nice. That's a good way to upcycle. Very creative.
If you guys are looking for ways to reuse things, there's a ton of information on the internet on how to reuse different items. There's so much stuff out there.
And like, because we have like a naked team, it's like a biking thing. Like our county will give you money for nonprofits if you like go to our farmers market, and they'll pay for the stuff to do it, and you'll make it, and they'll pay the nonprofit. And I helped make the recycled bike jewelry because my sister's on the team, and she helped too. And a lot of people showed up, and it's free when we did it.
That's really cool.
What kind of bike parts do you make into jewelry?
So chain. We do earrings and bracelets, and then we use a punch, use like a hole punch. and make out of the tire, and then we'll like tube tire. Oh my god, tube. And it and you can just cut a little bit along the line. Mom, the phone's ringing. Along the line, it's still a tube. You can just cut it, and it can be like ring earrings, kind of. And it's super cool.
Nice.
That
And like,
sounds cool. I forgot to
and-
show this. I made this out of plastic bags. I cut them into strips and I braided them and made a long jump rope.
that's really cool.
Yeah, so like Tom said, there are so many different ways to reuse and upcycle things.
Yeah, and like when Mom buys like when she does like stuff for work, because she like helps with garden and stuff. We use our milk cartons to put plants in and stuff, and like just random things like that. We'll put them in like little containers, like yogurt containers. We can use those, and just like little things that it just
Very cool.
Which I like.
Thank you for sharing. Yep, yogurt containers are a good thing to reuse, and jars, like Tom said. Sometimes
my sister actually currently is growing weeds in this jar.
Great.
It's looking really good.
Yeah, it is.
It's very tall.
Awesome.
It started off fitting in the container with the lid on it, not so much anymore. Each jar, and there's like tons of weeds growing in it. Which is really good, because she had to do like a 4-H project, so she did it like that.
Very cool.
You can
Thank you.
donate like clothing items and old toys and things like that. You can donate that to charitable organizations too. Instead of throwing them away, somebody may like to use them again or can wear them again.
Yeah. Because we have I have a friend who's just a little younger than me, and like I'll just give her like all my hand-me-downs and like my snowboard gear, because I snowboard race. I'll like just give her down my old snowboard gear and stuff. And I have a question. Do you know anything to do with the leftover scraps from the T-shirt?
Oh, that's a good question, Beth. She's asking about what to do with the leftover scraps.
So I have had kids say that they're going to use them as a scrunchie or hair tie. I've had kids that held it up and it could almost be a mask. If you trim it and you're little enough, like my 5-year-old, he used one of these sleeves as a mask. Yep, or a headband, like a bandana.
Oh yeah.
My daughter has used them for Barbie clothes. And then if you sew, you can use fabric scraps for anything. There are different instructions on the internet, and I think maybe you can use an old sock to turn it into a little stuffed animal, and then you could use scraps for anything, to make eyes or to make little clothes for your little fabric stuffed animals. So that's a way of upcycling an old sock or other types of things. So yeah, there are so many instructions out there online. So the grown-ups in your life can help you find all kinds of cool, probably even on YouTube, there's all kinds of upcycling craft ideas for kids. So
yeah. And I think another thing that might work is like putting a hairband inside and sewing it and making it like scrunchy. That'd be another way to maybe size up and make some scrunchies.
Yes, you can make some cool scrunchies out of it.
Maybe
I think, oh, go ahead.
Maybe cut like some of this and tie it and make it like a hairband.
I've seen people make quilts out of old T-shirts, and you can cut strips of fabric and make them into rugs. There are lots of different really crafty things that you could do to use something old and make it into something new. So you guys are so creative. I'm sure you have all kinds of things you could do.
Yep.
But thank you so much for joining us. Oh, did you have another question?
No, have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a nice day. And we have more programs coming up at 11, so you can take a little break and we'll see what we have coming up at 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. You could either leave the room and just go back to the main room, or you can sign off and then sign back on for your next class, or whichever you'd like to do. Thanks, Beth.
Thanks, Tom.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.